Hi, welcome back to Some. This movie name will be revealed at the end. Please watch till the end. In a mysterious wild zone, an astronaut desperately calls for help, but his prophet is not working. He believes he has fallen into some kind of gash in time and space, most probably not indeed Earth presently. A roar in the distance puts fear in him, and he begins running. But it's useless, a empty T-Rex finds him anyway. Meanwhile on normal Earth, television host Matt Lauer welcomes to his show his rearmost guest, pretentious croaker Rick Marshall. Rick has been studying quantum paleontology, which is grounded on the proposition of time foundations, and has taken 50 million bones of exploration. He has indeed written a book about it, and now he is asking for further finances. Matt, of course, finds the idea of resemblant confines laughable, and he points out every important scientist in the field calls it nonsense, which angers Rick and makes him leave the plant. But he comes back when he hears Matt say he is out of his mind, intending to fight him only to be stopped by security. 3 times laterally, Rick is making a donation on tachyons, subatomic patches that move so presto that they travel backward in time. He has designed a device, the tachyon amplifier, that should allow them to travel sideways in time to another dimension where history, present, and future all meet. Sorely, his followership does not watch important, it's just a bunch of kiddies on a class field trip, and they only have silly questions to ask. Giving addresses for kiddies at a gallery is the only job Rick could get after the incident on television. But one person does feel interested in his exploration, doctoral seeker Holly Cantrell, who visits Rick and tells him he is brilliant. She thinks he should finish erecting the amplifier, because his propositions are right, and to prove it, she takes out an ancient reactionary with an imprint of an ultramodern lighter. She set up it in the desert, girdled by chargers that radiate tachyon energy, like the one she's wearing on her choker. Rick looks at the reactionary, takes out his own lighter, and puts it on the imprint. It fits impeccably. This gives him back the stopgap he'd lost. The coming day, Holly comes back to check on him again, and finds him waking up from a food coma. He stayed up working until veritably late, but he did it. He finished the tachyon amplifier, which he erected using some meanage objects, so it has some leftover data from the drive like silly songs. He hasn't been stalwart enough to test it yet, however, so Holly takes him to the desert where she set up the reactionary. The problem is, the delve she used to explore has come a sightseer magnet, so they must pay gift shop proprietor Will Stanton to take them there in his raft. The delve has been decorated to make it look spooky, but Rick and Holly do not watch about the made-up myths Will is trying to tell them. There is a strong tachyon reading in his delve, so Rick turns on the amplifier, which falls into the water when an earthquake suddenly begins. The waters under them get more aggressive, and the raft is pushed to the reverse of the delve, which has magically come deeper and glowing. The triad falls into a water whirlpool at the end of the lift. This whirlpool turns out to be a time underpinning that takes them to the land of the lost where once, present, and future collide. Just like Rick had theorized, they are on a big desert girdled by eclectic effects that have fallen there, from arbitrary doors to a Viking boat. The only issue is that they have lost the amplifier, so they must find it if they want to return home. An unforeseen noise cautions them of a presence hard, so they go probe. They find 2 advanced primate brutes about to immolate a third, so the triad decides to cut in to deliver him. Will tries to scarify them off with the honey of his lighter, but the brutes simply snare it when he accidentally drops it on the ground and run down. Since she's studied primitive languages, Holly approaches the third critter to show him they are musketeers, and they learn his name is Chaka. Rick tries to check Chaka's wounded ankle, but this makes him freak out and run, so the triad goes after him. They end up falling into a retired sand pit that takes them to an underground delve, filled with bones. Cognizant vines sneak on them from before and snare them by the midriff to hang them on a tree, so the group begins swinging from side to side to try to reach the box. A T-Rex appears on the contrary side and tries to eat them, but because of the swinging, he misses them and chomps on the vines rather. This frees the group and makes them fall to the ground, where they incontinently start running down into the jungle, where they stop to take a picture of the T-Rex for evidence, before making their way into a mountain. Chaka has crossed aground and is trying to destroy it to stop the dinosaur from following him, so the triad must run redundant snappily, so they are not left before. They cross to the other side just in time, and when the T-Rex sees how narrow the ground is, it decides the threat is not good and leaves. It changes its mind still when it hears Rick say its brain is the size of a walnut, so it turns around and jumps over the gap to go after them again. The group begins running formally more and enters a different delve, with an entrance too small for the T-Rex to go through, so this time it gives up for good. Will is sure the dinosaur has been looking specifically at Rick, and Holly decides to call it Grumpy. Inside this delve, Chaka finds the configurations of 2 humans and a bunch of their stuff, including a record player, so they decide to chamber there for the night. With Holly acting as his practitioner, Chaka tells them further about his life. He is the Napoleon of his people, and has been the victim of an unfaithful plot to steal his throne. His only crime is to love too important, and he thinks he has been treated too roughly, simply because he is pooped in the Vil well. Meanwhile, Will wants to put some boxes in front of the delve entrance to avoid being set up, but Rick reminds him formally again that dinosaurs have a brain the size of a walnut. Suddenly, Commodity hits the delve and makes it shake, and when they go outdoors to check what it was, they find a giant walnut the T-Rex has thrown at them. The following morning, Chaka brings them some fruits for breakfast as a sign of fellowship, but they've spiders outside, because that is what he considers food. The delve begins shaking again when a veritably bright light appears among the trees outdoors. Also, Rick receives some weird fancies of an alien asking him for help. He accepts this request and runs into the jungle with his group following him nearly until they come across an abandoned tabernacle with weird-looking statues and some kind of demitas stone that has been transferring the communication to Rick. Chaka is upset about these statues and tries to advise them of the beings hiding in the dark, but they cannot understand him. So these lizard-such-like beings take the occasion to come out and compass them. Holly takes off her belt in an attempt to use it as an armament, and that gives Rick an idea. He uses the belt buckle to reflect sun on the statues and also the stone, opening a portal. They enter, but the beings can't. This portal takes them to a fun dimension where the alien from Rick's vision, Anik, hides. He explains the brutes outdoors are Sleestacks, and they're trying to take over the world by using the power of the Chargers. To master them, he needs the Tachyon amplifier to unleash the full power of the Chargers. That way he could also shoot the Triad home. Will does not trust this Joe, but Rick accepts to help. The group goes back to the jungle where Rick makes an atomic chart of the area to try to form a plan to find the amplifier. The first step is using dinosaur urine he has gathered overnight to cover up their mortal scent. Rick showers himself with it doubly, but his musketeers refuse to do it too. The plan turns out to be meaningless, however, because Chaka shows up also and asks them to follow him to some suggestions he has set up. They return to the desert to an area that Holly images to be the entry point because it's filled with arbitrary effects, including their raft. When an ice cream truck falls from another time syrup, a bunch of dinosaurs shows up to feed on the ice cream man, including Grumpy and his gal, who are a veritably territorial species. This means they smell the urine and decide to go after the group. The party begins running in different directions, and Grumpy manages to catch Rick, but he frees himself when his ray pointer gets Grumpy in the eyes and makes him drop him. After hiding in colorful structures and vehicles the dinosaurs keep destroying, Rick hides behind a big gemstone and finds a tank of liquid nitrogen, which he picks up and takes to a launch that Holly and Will prepare for him. The tank is shot into the womanish dinosaur's mouth, making it explode in million pieces and revealing the amplifier, which had been in her stomach each on. Before they can reach it, however, a little dinosaur tries to snare it, and a pteranodon comes by and takes it to its nest when hunting the lower prey. This makes Rick give up on their hunt, and Holly is hurt by this decision, because she had thrown her future and wisdom down for following him and his crazy propositions. She, Will, and Chaka go back to the jungle to camp for the night, and Holly translates a bit further of what Chaka tells them about his life. He misses his lineage, which is vagrant and lives where food is. The women serve all the men's requirements, and as the Napoleon, Chaka has a stew of his own. He thinks they are unattractive, but they make up for it with nice personalities. Their little converse is intruded by Rick, who had a lot of time to suppose and has decided he will not give up. He tries to apologize for his station with a song on the banjo, while a huge mosquito sucks his blood, which makes him feel tired. The mosquito ends up dying when Rick passes out on top of it. The coming morning, Rick does not notice the giant welt on his reverse. He just guides the group to the powder keg, where the dinosaur nest and the amplifier are. Veritably precisely, Rick sneaks among the eggs without touching them and reaches the amplifier, which has been playing music each on. When Rick turns it off, however, the eggs start setting, because what has been keeping them asleep is the music acting as a lullaby. Rick cannot find a way to turn the amplifier back on, so he starts singing, and his musketeers soon join him, indeed Chaka, who proves to have an awful singing voice. The baby dinosaurs go back to sleep, and the group manages to escape with the amplifier. To celebrate their success, they return to the desert and have fun in the pool, where Chaka shares some fruits with Rick and Will, as it's tradition in his ville. These fruits turn out to be anodynes, so while the three men stay for the goods to pass, Holly tries out the amplifier. It makes another Demitas stone appear in the middle of the desert, and she enters it to find a delve inside with dinosaur eggs, so she keeps one. There's also a hologram with a communication from the natives with a warning Enoch is actually the bad Joe, and he is trying to get the power of the chargers for himself. Before Holly can run back to tell her musketeers, however, she's captured by a Sleestack. Meanwhile, the men fall asleep after eating a giant grouser that fell in a hot spring and got boiled. The following morning, they discover Holly is gone, so Rick sends Chaka on a charge while he and Will explore the stone delve. There are Sleestack's guards around taking a break to exfoliate, so the men steal their chalet skins to put them on, and pretend to be Sleestacks too. They follow the brutes to the tabernacle where Holly is in a pen about to be lowered in lava for having helped Enoch, so now Rick and Will know the verity as well. The Sleestacks want to capture them too, so Rick jumps on Holly's pen and begins swinging it from side to side to hit each critter and push them into the lava. The two of them jump out of the pen before it falls, and they kiss. Also, Holly tells them to accelerate up and leave before Enoch finds them. There is a little problem though. They had formerly transferred Chaka to get him. Enoch appears also with an army of Sleestacks he is mind-controlling with a Demitas of his own, and steals the amplifier before making Grumpy appear to take care of them. Rick decides he must not run presently, so after transferring Holly down for her own safety, he confronts the T-Rex. He tries to use some of the fireworks Will had in his fund, but they do not work, so he throws them down together with his lighter, which creates the reactionary Holly setup. Next, he uses a staff the Sleestack clerk had been holding to try a pole vault, but Grumpy simply quaffs him when he is in the middle of the air. Since Rick was his only thing, Grumpy ignores the others and leaves, so now the Sleestacks return to the tabernacle. Enoch enters the stone and begins working the amplifier on the chargers, while the group tries to fight off the Sleestacks, but there are too numerous of them. Suddenly, some important help arrives. It's Rick riding on Grumpy, who fluently defeats all the adversaries that compass them. Holly and Will want to know how he is alive, so Rick tells them Grumpy pooped him out, and when he was making his way out, he dislodged some intestinal blockage. Grumpy is thankful for that, so the two of them are now musketeers. The group enters the stone portal and finds Enoch, who has formerly opened a time syrup to Earth. Rick jumps on him and wrestles him on the ground, but when Will tries to help, he tilts the Demitas charger and makes one fall, shattering it. This causes the door to close, so Rick thinks snappily and grabs Holly's Demitas choker to replace the bone that broke. The door opens again, so Rick and Holly rush towards it to escape, but Enoch heists Will and obviates him from doing the same. With the help of Chaka, Will pulls a wrestling move and captures Enoch before telling his musketeers to leave without him. He slightly had a life back on Earth, so he's staying then with Chaka and starting over. Holly and Rick enter the portal and return to Earth, right at the entrance of the sightseer delve in the desert. Meanwhile, Chaka takes Will with him to meet his lineage, where the women he called unattractive are actually veritably mortal-like, so Will is happy to befriend them. A time laterally, Rick appears on television again to rub his success on Matt Lauer's face. He shows everyone a dinosaur egg Holly brought with her, and promotes his new book. Matt Lauer can stink it, which causes Matt to jump on him to punch him. After the show is over, the egg doors while resting on the table, and reveals it's not from a dinosaur. There's a baby Sleestack inside. This is an adventure, sci-fi film land of the lost. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to watch more Cine summaries like this, turn on notifications and press the like button to support us.